You should have seen what he did to the present I gave him.
The Silver Age of DC Comics is home to some wild stories. While the Season 3 episode of Batman Brave and the Bold Battle of the Superheroes pays homage to many things, there are a couple of moments that get their own kind of standouts, and those ones are modeled more directly off of specific covers. And one of those is Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen issue 30. However, it's just a brief reference, so you don't get to know a bit more about the actual story behind that cover. This episode was more just casting around for various super dickery moments. Who else remembers that blog? It was a good time. It was peak images of jerk Superman. In preparation for reviewing this full Batman Brave and the Bold episode, I've been highlighting some of these individual moments because some of the stories are so interesting, they just need to be fully explored. And if we did that in that video, it would be breadtuber length. Now, in the episode, the events that are shown to be happening are because of Red K. But the story we're about to look at is not a Red K story, nor is it an imaginary story, which was the case when they recreated the cover of Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, where he married Lana.
It serves you right, Lois. After all the love schemes you pulled to get me to marry you.
No, this is an in-canon story where Superman becomes Jimmy Olsen's dad, or he tries to. Because the story being referenced on Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 30 is the son of Superman, and the gift being destroyed is a Father's Day present. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and we're going to look into just how Superman became Jimmy's dad. He adopted him, that's how. The story Son of Superman is the first story in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen issue 30, which was published in 1958 and is written by Otto Binder. So get ready for madness, with art by Kurt Swan, so the madness is going to look nice. The inks in this are by Ray Burnley, and you're also going to learn a lot about Jimmy, and perhaps fall down a rabbit hole with some questions such as how old is Jimmy? It's things you don't always think about, but then stories like this may bring it up.
Jimmy, this gift you got me for Father's Day makes me sorry I ever adopted you as my son. I'll have to destroy it to teach you a lesson.
But Superman, Dad, what did I do wrong? The disdain on his face, so well conveyed. Now the cover can play a bigger part in the story than one anticipates, so we're going to come back to it. But as for the story itself, the top of the start of the first page is a teaser, and it features so many things. Superman in an apron, the Bless Our Super Home, and also the reminder that at this point in Superman history, Jimmy was an orphan, although there'll be a retcon later on to make it that he just thought he was an orphan. This is all pre-crisis Jimmy too. History's past. Now as for how old Jimmy is, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 61 celebrates the fact that he's turning 21. Hooray! So in this, he's less than that. He's a young lad. He's a boy reporter. The first panel really drives it home while they're having a sponsored father-son event. Boy employees of the Daily Planet one day joyfully attend a picnic sponsored by their newspaper, except for one red-headed lad. Didn't you bring your dad, Jimmy Olsen? I can't. I'm an orphan. I have no father. Why did that extra say his whole name like that? Who are you, nameless extra? But no parents. This looks like a job for Superman. A voice contradicts the cub reporter.
Yes, you have, Jimmy. For years, you've been almost like a son to me. Why not let me be your official foster father?
Holy cow. You mean you'll adopt me, Superman? According to Superman, he has the court documents right there for a 30-day trial run of him as Jimmy's dad. That time frame is there to see if he'll be a good dad, and then they can just annul it if it doesn't work out. Now, Jimmy's not concerned with that ominous foreshadowing, though he should be. He's just pleased that Superman suddenly randomly wants to be his dad. Take that, other boy employees. Gosh, it's like a dream come true. I was only your pal before, but now I can call you dad.
Right, son. Now what's to stop you going to the father-son picnic with me?
It makes it sound like they were barring entry at the park. However, note that even Superman found that awkward. There was that little pause there, the ellipses before son. Now we just need to ponder things like how long has Jimmy been thinking about Superman being his dad, because he just takes to it so quickly. By the end of all the events, there's competitions and Superman wins them all because he's Superman. And then Jimmy gets to pull the "that's my dad" at the end of a happy day.
We'll live together in this house I rented, Jimmy.
Oh boy, our own home where I'll spend evenings with my super dad.
I already brought all your things from your former places, including your collection of my trophies.
Thanks, Dad. I'm the luckiest boy in the world. Whee! Kind of frightened that Superman just knows where all of Jimmy's things are and can just decide unilaterally like that. It was at this point I started to wonder, okay, what's the catch? Is this some kind of criminal who just looks like Superman? Is this one of his robots gone rogue? Is this just because Superman knows Jimmy can't be trusted to not drink the souvenirs that he gives him? That's how Jimmy became the Wolfman. Also, why did Superman label their house like that? Criminals, come one, come all. Superman and his son live here. Now, there's only one rule in this house, and that's that Jimmy can't enter the secret room, and it's labeled, so he should know better. The next day, Jimmy's big news surprises everyone at the office, except Clark Kent. Clark, someone adopted me, but you'll never guess who it is.
Jimmy would never guess that I'm Superman, his foster father. I'll pretend to be startled when he tells me.
So many layers there. How long can Clark keep up the ruse? Also, look at all that bragging that Jimmy's doing. This is why he'll never be adopted by Bruce Wayne. At first, everything's going well. Jimmy gets taken to the fortress, which will still happen later on, but this time it's special because he's going as Superman's son. He gets a tour and gets to see things like the creature that eats only diamonds that Superman has to make for it. But what Superman really wants to show off is this mural that he painted himself of the time he saved and made a solar system. Yes, saved and made.
Last year, my super telescope showed a distant sun blowing up, destroying its family of planets. The people escaped in spaceships, but had no home to return to. Speeding there, I gathered millions of meteors and fused them together, constructing artificial planets for these homeless people. Finally finding a burned out star, I rekindled it into a blazing new sun with an atomic match. After the people moved to the new worlds, they named various parts in my honor.
We got Superman's sun, Superman's comet, Superman's planet, Superman's asteroid. They weren't the most creative bunch. Golly, wait till I tell my friends that my dad built a whole new solar system. You know, with all this my dad can beat up your dad boasting, Jimmy's not gonna have a lot of friends soon. My dad works at Nintendo. Jimmy Olsen, probably. Presently, Superman lets Jimmy amuse himself.
I want to check something in this room, Jimmy. Won't take long. Meanwhile, have some target practice with that special gun I made.
Wow, it shoots lightning bolts. Son, I have some work to do. Please play with these special weapons. But after Superman leaves and comes back, he's a different person. Suddenly, he takes the gun away, not because he's concerned about safety, but because he claims that he never gave Jimmy permission to play with it. He bans him from the fortress, and so we enter Jimmy's Cinderella arc. But at home, Superman is even more stern.
Jimmy, you're taking poor care of the trophies I gave you. It's disgraceful. Shine them up. Hear me?
Yes, Dad. Jeepers, I never thought he'd become strict like this. The worst is yet to come, Jimmy. Soon, when Superman's telescopic vision spots an emergency.
A job for Superman? But I'm not taking you along, Jimmy. Stay and do the dishes.
When I was just his pal, he often took me along. Now that I'm his son, he ignores me. Now, he's not ignoring you. He's telling you to do chores. Also, keeping you safe, but that's not how this is framed at all. Having to clean his belongings, missing out on life-threatening scenarios, being Superman's son is the worst. There is one panel that's really funny, and it's when Jimmy gets jealous that Superman gives the best scoops to Clark Kent rather than his own son. Jimmy demands nepotism. Hi, Dad. Fly me home from work. I called you with my wristwatch's Superman signal.
Take it off, Jimmy. I'm giving it to Lois Lane. You bother me too much with it.
Oh yes, because there's no way Lois will bother Superman with a signal watch. The funny thing about this scenario is that Jimmy really does use the signal watch too much on occasion. It is a bit of a waste for him to be calling to carry him home from work. It's giving Lois jumping off a cliff because she's late for work. See, she doesn't even need a signal watch to be a menace. Being Superman's son sure is lonely. He's always out on some super job. That's what you think, Jimmy. Really, he's at his own apartment as Clark Kent? They don't actually show that. That's just what I imagine. However, at this point, things start to escalate. The secret room is found open, and Superman doesn't believe Jimmy when he says that he didn't go into it and he didn't open it.
A likely story, son. If I catch you in here again, it'll go hard with you.
He doesn't trust me anymore. What can I do to prove I'm a good son? I almost said good boy there instead. My mind is autofilling. Jimmy decides that the best way to appease his temperamental father is to buy him a gift, one that will take up all of his savings. Jimmy's about to spend his life savings on something for Superman. Surely Superman's fatherly heart will melt at this token of affection from his adopted son. But on Father's Day, I had the tailor make that special robe just for you, Dad. Do you, like it?
The emblem is crooked and the colors don't match my costume closely enough. I won't wear anything that poorly made.
Dad, stop. Don't use the heat of your x-ray vision. Oh, too late. My Father's Day gift. Burning up. Cruel as Superman is being here, he's not wrong. The colors do clash. Do better, Jimmy. Blue robe next time. Now, this is actually the last straw for Jimmy. The narration box actually says that his happiness is shattered. It's very dramatic. Not just shattered, completely shattered. He can no longer live under Superman's abuse, so he goes to the court and tells them to just call it off. The trial period, it hasn't worked. Or maybe, it did its purpose to show that this can't work. And this is why you'll never be Mrs. Superman, Jimmy. Lois can tolerate much more than this. For her, this would be a Tuesday. So they go to court, they void the adoption, and you may be wondering at this point, what's the twist? Where's the reveal that this isn't actually Superman? Well, there is a twist, but it's not that. This is all Superman. As the super miserable boy leaves, well, goodbye to Superman. I guess you'll never want to see me again.
Wrong, Jimmy. I still wish you were my son. I'll explain why I deliberately caused our breakup at the Fortress of Solitude. You're unbanned, Jimmy.
Why does Superman want Jimmy to be his son? That's a part that's never fully gotten to in this, and it really just expects you to accept it. I can't get there. That's the suspension I couldn't get to. It's very much a huge but why though moment, even in the context of the stories going on at the time. But more importantly, why did Superman have to pretend to be a terrible father? Well, when he left Jimmy alone to play with that gun earlier, he went to consult his oracle computer that tells him when disasters are coming, and it's always right. And it told him that on June 17th, Superman would destroy his own son. So naturally, instead of telling Jimmy this, they can go and get the paperwork voided and Jimmy can be safe and everybody can feel good, because then technically Jimmy wouldn't be his son. Disaster avoided. No, instead he decided to terrorize him until he called off the adoption. But here's the thing, this is one of those situations where Superman is wrong. The computer wasn't talking about his son, S-O-N, it was talking about his son, S-U-N. Think back to the mural and Superman bragging about the solar system he made. Those grateful inhabitants had named their son Superman's son. Oh no, defeated by homonyms. This makes Superman realize there must be something wrong with his son, and so he rushes off to investigate it. He needs to figure out why he must destroy it. The Oracle's never wrong. It turns out that the sun he made had burned out, so he needs to smash it up so there's no spaceship that runs into it. And then he gets a new young star so that the planets can have heat, even though those people are probably dead. How long ago did it burn out before he noticed? But this story isn't about those alien inhabitants, it's about Jimmy's dreams of having a father being dashed. Back on Earth, after Superman moves Jimmy back to his former apartment.
I feel terrible, Jimmy. My misunderstanding of the prophecy broke up our father and son relationship. The court won't renew it. Good.
Don't apologize, Superman. If you'll recall, you were always out nights doing super jobs. Even if we lived together, we would see little of each other. But even if I'm not your son, I'm still your boy pal.
Nothing will ever change that, Jimmy.
And let us never mention this again. This is an odd one. It really highlights that Jimmy is a young lad, but his whole I'm keen to be adopted moment comes out of nowhere. There's just something about this story that feels a tad awkward, not fully realized, not as fully realized as some other stories, and for that we need to take a look back at the cover. We also need to look at the editor, Mort Weisinger. Weisinger did a lot of work in the pulps before entering the editorial scene at DC, at the time going by National Comics, even though people would call it DC Comics for decades before they officially changed the name. Now, one of the concepts that Weisinger brought with him over to comic publishing was the idea of creating a cover first and then creating a story based off of that. And this becomes something that would be adopted. Julius Schwartz would absolutely love it and do it a lot later on. They talk about this in the article Mort Weisinger, the Man Who Wouldn't Be Superman, in The Amazing World of DC Comics #7, which was a fanzine about DC, produced by DC. And it's got a really good interview from 1975 by Guy H. Lillian III. And in it, Weisinger talks a lot about the creative process, creating different lore for Superman, letters column, and also about pre-drawn covers and just some of the pitching process for writers and making sure that they had something to do. So I have a quote. Part of it's from Weisinger, part of it's from the interview, so let's go. Often stories grew around a pre-drawn cover, an innovation for comics Mort brought from the pulps. As it pertains to this issue, this does look like it could have been a candidate for that, just because it is a very arresting cover image, but the story that comes out of it just isn't very strong. Now, it is an Otto Binder story, so it goes to some wild places, and it does have some amusing moments, but on the whole, it just doesn't have the same heart or sense of fun as some of the other Jimmy Olsen stories. And it is very clearly playing tongue-in-cheek with the concept. You can see that in some of the narration boxes, but it just has the energy of a concept that's been stretched to try and make it fit. If that's what happened, maybe Binder really did want to tell a story where Jimmy is adopted by Superman. Or maybe, like some other times, Weisinger gave him the idea, which he also talked about in the Amazing Comics interview, stating, frequently a writer would come in with a plot that may have been good, but we'd have it in inventory already, or else the comics code wouldn't pass it. Now what's he supposed to do with it? I couldn't pay him for an outline we'd never use. The least I could do was to think of a plot for the writer, and if he liked it, I never forced it down his throat. We'd kick it around and evolve a story.
He frames it very positively. Not all the writers who this happen to do.
Now, when it comes to referencing Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen #30 on Brave and the Bold, what's shown does serve to highlight the strength of the issue, which was the cover, at least in terms of the story that's attached to it. The cover is far stronger, and so it makes sense that that's what comes out of it, and not mentioning the time that he adopted Jimmy. That would just be too complicated.
Superman is no pal of mine.
But now you know the story behind that cover, so now you can let me know what you think. Fun. Not the strongest outing, but why though? Jimmy has a lot of stuff to think about in this story. Your thoughts, I want to hear them. Please put them down below. While you're down there, please do all the other YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking this time today spent discussing comics and comic adjacent things with me. I always appreciate it. There'll be more videos coming soon. Let me know about any other issues you want to highlight, and I'll see you there. Bye-bye.